It happened just after 2 a.m. I know because I was wide awake, eyes closed, heart pounding, counting every second as her footsteps crept across the hardwood floor. My back was to her, and I could hear Jake's steady breathing beside me. He was still asleep. But I wasn't. I'd seen her glance at that drawer 3 times that day. I'd noticed the way her fingers lingered on the handle when she helped clean our room, and when I saw her watch Jake lock the bedroom door before bed, but not notice the quiet click of me unlocking it moments later. I knew. I knew what she was going to try. Diane, my mother-in-law, always smiled with her teeth and never with her eyes. The first time I met her, she complimented my lipstick and then told Jake, "She's got a strong jawline, like a fighter." I didn't take offense. I just made a mental note. That's what you do with people like her. You observe. You prepare. And tonight, I was prepared. I heard the door creak open slowly. She thought we were both asleep. She waited, probably frozen for a few seconds, listening to see if we stirred. We didn't. She moved slowly at first. Careful. I could hear her knees crack as she knelt down beside the dresser on my side of the bed. She opened the drawer. I heard the faint metallic jingle of keys inside. Then, boom! An explosion of glitter burst from the drawer like a carnival cannon. There was a loud screeching siren, not enough to hurt your ears, but definitely enough to wake a sleeping house. I shot up in bed, playing the startled wife, and gasped, "What the hell?" Jake jerked upright, eyes wide, confused and half asleep. He turned to the foot of the bed, where Diane stood frozen, completely covered in shimmering pink and gold glitter, her mouth slightly open, a single key dangling from her fingers. The room looked like a unicorn had exploded. She dropped the key. I was just, she started. "Mom?" Jake squinted. "What are you doing in here?" I pretended to fumble for the light, flipping the switch to reveal the full glory of her glitter-coated body. Her hair sparkled. Her sweater sparkled. Even her teeth sparkled. My stomach was doing backflips, trying to decide between bursting into laughter or fury. "I thought I heard a noise," she lied. "I was just checking." I sat still, staring at her. "In our bedroom?" She opened her mouth again but shut it just as fast. The siren was still wailing from inside the drawer, loud, obnoxious, and impossible to ignore. Jake groaned and stumbled over to turn it off. "You installed an alarm in your drawer?" he asked, half-dazed. "Yes," I replied calmly, still staring at Diane. "It's for emergencies." She blinked, her glitter-covered lashes clumping together. "It was just a mistake. I got confused." Jake looked completely bewildered, glancing back and forth between us. "Confused about what?" he asked. "I think we should all just go back to bed," she mumbled quickly, backing toward the door like a raccoon caught in a garbage can. But I wasn't done. I reached into the drawer and removed a tiny black camera. "By the way, this recorded everything." Diane froze in her tracks. Her shoulders tensed. She didn't turn around. Jake looked at me. "Wait, what?" "I set it up yesterday," I said, my voice cool and level, just in case. Now she turned. "You filmed me?" she asked, her voice trembling, not from guilt, but from being caught. Jake's face went pale. He looked at her. "Mom, what were you looking for?" "I wasn't," she started, but the words died in her throat. I stood, holding the camera gently in my hand. "We'll talk about it in the morning. But right now, you should probably go wash your face. You've got glitter in your nose." She didn't move, so I said it louder, firmer. "You need to leave. Now." She turned, humiliated, and walked out without another word. Jake didn't follow her. He just sat there, stunned, as tiny flakes of glitter floated in the air like dust in sunlight. I finally allowed myself a small smile. She thought I was naive. She thought I was asleep. She thought wrong. The night after the glitter bomb exploded, I barely slept. Not because I was afraid. Diane had already humiliated herself enough for one visit. But because I couldn't stop thinking about my mother. I lay awake with the small black camera resting on my nightstand, listening to Jake's shallow breathing beside me and remembering her voice. Her soft warning still echoed in my ears like she'd just said it yesterday. Anna, don't ever trust that woman. Not with your home, not with your heart, and definitely not with what I'm about to give you. It was 2 years ago, in a quiet hospice room filled with beeping machines and the faint smell of flowers nobody watered. My mother was wrapped in a pale blue blanket, her skin thin, her eyes tired. But her voice was sharp. She reached under her pillow and pulled out a plain white envelope. Inside was a small gold key, the kind you'd think opened a jewelry box, except this one didn't. This key opens the safe hidden behind your bedroom mirror, she said, like she was giving me instructions for handling a bomb. I didn't even know there was a safe. I thought she was joking, but she wasn't smiling. I don't want Jake to know about it, she said, her hand gripping mine tightly. Not because I don't trust him, but because she will find a way to get to him. She was Diane, of course. Even from a hospital bed, my mother hadn't forgotten how Diane treated her. When Jake and I got married, Diane showed up to the reception late and in white. She made a toast where she called me practical, not flashy. Just what Jake needs for a stable life. My mom sat through it with clenched teeth. She never confronted her, but she never forgot. Neither did I. My mother passed away just a week after giving me the key. After the funeral, I found the safe. I stood in front of the full-length mirror she gave me as a wedding gift, tilted it gently to the side like she instructed. And there it was, a small steel door in the wall. I used the key and opened it, my heart racing. Inside were old heirlooms from her side of the family, pearl earrings, antique rings, letters in her handwriting, and a neat stack of emergency cash wrapped in a rubber band. But tucked underneath was the real treasure, her handwritten journal. Page after page of thoughts, fears, stories about me, memories of our family, things she never said out loud. I read the whole thing in one night. She wrote about how much she loved me, how proud she was of the woman I'd become, and how worried she was that Diane would one day try to manipulate me or Jake into giving her control. It was all there, in ink, in her words, no confusion. I sealed it all back up and promised myself I'd protect it with everything I had. And I have. Until now, Diane never got close. But something changed recently. Her tone. Her sudden drop-ins. The questions she asked when she thought I wasn't paying attention. Where did your mom keep her jewelry? Did she leave you anything valuable? What's that mirror hiding, huh? Just your reflection or something more? She always laughed afterward like she was joking. But I never laughed with her. That's why I bought the motion-triggered glitter trap online. That's why I placed the key decoy in the drawer. That's why I placed the camera right between my perfume bottles, perfectly aimed. I didn't do it to hurt her. I did it to prove a point. And more importantly, to protect my mother's last gift to me. That night in bed, as Jake tossed and turned beside me, I finally whispered, "Mom, I kept my promise." I don't know if she heard me, but I like to think she did. It started with a text. "Hey, sweetie, just booked a ticket. I'll be flying in tomorrow. Can't wait to see you too." No warning, no asking, just a declaration. I stared at the message on my phone, blinking. It was 4:23 p.m. on a random Thursday. Diane hadn't visited in months. Jake had mentioned that she seemed lonely on their last call, but I hadn't realized that meant she'd be moving herself in. When I showed him the text, Jake chuckled. "Well, I guess it'll be nice to have her around for a few days." A few days, right. She arrived the next morning with 3 large suitcases and a wide, sugary smile that made my stomach twist. I remember thinking, who packs that much for a weekend? "Oh, this old thing," she said when I offered to carry one of her bags. "Just a few knits and kitchen supplies. You know I hate being idle." Idle. That word didn't exist in Diane's world. She wasn't idle. She was invasive. By the end of day 1, she had rearranged our spice rack, rewashed our towels because they smelled too detergenty, commented on how quiet the house was for a couple our age. And by the second night, she started asking questions. "So, where's that mirror from again?" she asked, sipping chamomile tea she brewed without asking. "It's just so big for this room." "My mom gave it to us," I said, keeping my voice light. Diane tilted her head. "Right, she had interesting taste. Did she leave you anything else?" Jake was sitting next to me on the couch, so I smiled politely. "Just memories." She laughed. "Memories don't pay the mortgage, honey." Jake didn't catch the shade. He was too busy checking his emails. The truth is, Diane has always been obsessed with money. Not in the flashy way. She's not the type to wear diamonds or drive a sports car. She's more subtle. She likes to know where the money is. She wants to be around it, to control it. She once accidentally opened Jake's tax envelope, then claimed it looked like junk mail. Another time, she offered to help me with laundry and somehow found her way into our locked filing cabinet. She said the key just fell out of nowhere. Sure. So when she started hovering in the bedroom, especially around my side of the room, I knew something was up. On the third day of her visit, I walked in and found her wiping down our full-length mirror with a rag. "Just a little dusty," she said with a smile. "Thought I'd help." I nodded, biting my tongue. But my heart was racing. Later that night, Jake was in the shower, and I was in the kitchen when I saw her again, standing in our room with the door cracked open, staring into the mirror like it held a secret. When she saw me, she jumped and quickly pulled out her phone. "Oh, just checking my makeup," she said. "With the lights off?" That's when I knew I couldn't wait any longer. I needed to set the trap. That same night, I placed the camera on my dresser and activated the glitter bomb trap inside the drawer. I slipped the fake key on top and left it slightly exposed. Everything was set. She thought she was clever, that I was clueless, that her sneaky glances and casual comments were harmless. But I had learned a long time ago that when Diane got curious, she was planning something. And when she got quiet, she was already doing it. Jake didn't notice her change in behavior. He rarely did. To him, she was just being a bit overbearing. To me, she was casing the room like a thief. So I waited, patient, calm, watching her pattern, letting her think I was tired, distracted, unaware, until the night she finally made her move. It looks like a regular mirror, full length, framed in simple white wood. Nothing flashy, nothing that screams, "Look behind me." It had hung in our bedroom for 2 years without anyone asking about it, except Diane. Every time she walked past it, I noticed how her eyes lingered. Once, I even caught her tilting her head, like she was trying to figure something out. At first, I told myself I was being paranoid, but then I remembered my mom's exact words. "You'll know when she starts sniffing around. She won't be able to help herself." And now she was sniffing. Hard. I remember the day my mom showed me the safe like it was yesterday. She'd just gotten back from her final doctor's visit, and we were sitting in her bedroom, sunlight pouring through the windows, her hand trembling as she handed me the gold key. "I had it built into the wall behind the mirror when you were 17, she whispered. "I didn't want your father to know. I didn't want Diane to even dream it existed." I laughed nervously, thinking she was being dramatic. But when she stood up, frail but determined, and led me to the mirror, she showed me how it worked. "You don't move the mirror," she said. "You slide it. It's on a hidden rail, built into the studs." With both hands, she gently pushed the mirror to the right. It slid quietly, revealing a steel door with a keyhole in the center. I stared at it in shock. Inside was everything she couldn't trust the world with. A few antique pieces that had been in our family for generations. A stack of legal documents, old letters, land certificates, my grandmother's wedding band. But most importantly, a journal filled with my mother's thoughts, her real thoughts. Some people leave behind money. Some leave instructions. My mother left me her truth. After she passed, I kept that mirror closed. I never told Jake about the safe, not because I didn't trust him, but because I knew how persuasive Diane could be. She had a way of twisting things, of asking just the right question at just the wrong moment. And now she was standing in front of that very mirror every morning, brushing her hair in slow motion like she was trying to feel something on the other side. One morning, I returned from the grocery store and noticed the mirror looked off, just slightly out of place, tilted, crooked. I walked over and gently tried to slide it. It moved half an inch before stopping. I hadn't touched it in weeks. Jake was still out for a run, and Diane was reading in the living room. I pulled the mirror open just enough to peek behind it. The safe was still locked. The journal, the heirlooms, everything untouched. But the dust on the edge of the mirror had been disturbed, and there was a faint smudge of fingerprint oil on the steel door, like someone had pressed against it. Someone had been trying. I closed it gently and slid the mirror back into place. That night at dinner, Diane asked me a question with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "So, how's your sleep lately? Still waking up at night?" Jake didn't think much of it. He answered for me, talking about his recent work stress. But I didn't say a word. I just watched her stir her soup, her eyes flicking toward me every few seconds. She was testing me. She wanted to know if I had caught her. And that's when I made up my mind. I'd give her one more night, just one. If she tried again, she wouldn't be walking away with a secret. She'd be walking away with glitter in her hair, a ringing in her ears, and no clue what just hit her. And I'd be right there to watch it all. The house was dark. The only light came from the hallway night bulb, casting a faint yellow glow through the crack under our bedroom door. Jake was fast asleep next to me, breathing softly, his arm draped lazily across his side of the bed. But I wasn't sleeping. I lay perfectly still, eyes closed, every muscle in my body tense. I had been waiting for this moment. I heard it, the softest creak of the door opening. It was so quiet, it might have been missed by someone who wasn't listening for it. But I was. Diane was moving slowly, tiptoeing, calculated. I could hear the soft friction of her socks gliding against the floor as she crept further into our bedroom. Her perfume lingered, sweet and artificial, like overripe fruit. I didn't move, not even when she reached my side of the bed. She paused. I could feel her standing there, probably checking if we were still asleep. Jake didn't stir. She crouched down, the faint click of the drawer opening sliced through the silence like a blade. My breath slowed. My heart didn't. She was going for it. The fake key I had left sticking slightly out of the drawer to bait her. She took it. And then, boom! An explosion of glitter, color, and sound erupted from the drawer like fireworks on the 4th of July. A cloud of shimmering gold and hot pink sprayed straight into her face, followed by a piercing screech from the motion-triggered alarm. She screamed, loudly. Jake jolted upright in bed, flailing in confusion. What's happening? I sat up too, gasping for dramatic effect. The room was filled with glitter fog. It shimmered in the air like fairy dust under a spotlight. And right in the middle of it stood Diane, completely frozen, covered head to toe in sparkling powder, looking like a disco ball exploded on her. She dropped the key and stumbled backward, coughing and flailing her arms as the siren wailed beside her. "What is that noise?" Jake shouted, blinking wildly. I calmly reached over to the drawer and silenced the alarm. Then I flipped on the light, and there she was, Diane, caught in the act, glitter sticking to her eyelashes, her gray sweater now pink and gold, her expression twisted in shock and embarrassment. I thought I heard something," she stammered. "Really?" I said, rubbing my eyes like I was still waking up. "So, you opened my drawer? In the middle of the night?" Jake looked at her, then at me. "Mom, what are you doing?" I was looking for aspirin. I had a headache." "In our bedroom?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. "At 2 a.m? "I didn't want to wake anyone," she said, trying to dust the glitter off her face, which only made it worse. Jake swung his legs off the bed. "But you opened Anna's drawer." She pointed at me. "She always keeps medicine there, don't you, sweetie?" "Funny," I said, standing up, "because that drawer's always been empty." She blinked rapidly. I walked over to the dresser and reached behind my perfume bottles, pulling out the tiny black device. I held it up between two fingers. I recorded everything, I said flatly. The color drained from her face. Jake's mouth dropped open. Wait, what? I set up a camera yesterday, just to be safe. I glanced at Diane. I had a feeling she might try something. You filmed me? Diane asked, stepping back, her voice a mix of rage and disbelief. Jake stood up now, fully alert, eyes locked on his mother. Why would you go through Anna's drawer, Mom? I wasn't, she snapped, glitter raining down from her hair as she shook her head. This is insane. You two are turning this house into a trap. Jake looked at me, his face torn between confusion and dawning realization. Do you really believe I'd do something so low? She asked him, almost whispering. He didn't answer. And that silence told me everything. Diane stood there, still coated in glitter, still clutching the lie, but the truth had already lit the room brighter than the explosion. The woman who thought she had all the power just lost control in front of her own son. The glitter had mostly settled by morning, but Diane hadn't. She didn't say a word at breakfast, not even a fake smile. She just sat at the table, quiet and stiff, occasionally brushing sparkles off her cardigan like she could somehow erase what had happened the night before. Jake kept glancing between us. He barely touched his toast. I didn't push it. Not yet. I waited until he left to walk the dog. Then I went to the bedroom, opened the same drawer Diane had raided, and took out the envelope. It was still there, just beneath the false bottom I had built under the glitter trap. A small, plain white envelope, sealed tightly. The edges were worn from how often I'd held it but never opened it, until 2 nights ago. It wasn't addressed to me. It wasn't addressed to anyone. But I knew exactly who it was about. Inside was a single photograph. Faded, blurry, but clear enough. It showed Diane standing inside my mother's hospital room, her back to the door, her hand reaching into my mother's purse. The timestamp in the corner confirmed it. 2 weeks before my mother passed. I found it by accident. While organizing the box of legal papers my mother had left in the safe, the photo had slipped from between 2 documents. When I saw it, my entire body went cold. I remembered that day. It was one of the only days I hadn't visited my mom, because Diane had insisted on checking in for me. She said I looked too tired, said she'd take care of it. I believed her, and the next day one of Mom's rings was missing. When I asked about it, Diane claimed the nurses must have stolen it. She even offered to speak to the hospital supervisor. But now, I had proof. I placed the photo back into the envelope and returned it to the drawer, this time with the fake key gone. Then I went into the living room. She was on the couch, pretending to read a magazine, still sparkling faintly in the sunlight. I think we should talk, I said. She didn't look up. About what? You know what? She closed the magazine with a sigh. Anna, I already said I'm sorry for last night. Let's not drag this out. I nodded. Okay. Then you won't mind if I show Jake what's in the drawer. Now she looked at me. Eyes sharp, controlled. What do you mean? She asked. I walked back into the room, grabbed the envelope, and returned. I held it out to her. Open it. She didn't take it at first. She just stared at it like it was ticking. Then slowly, she reached forward and slid the photo out. Her face crumpled, her lips parted, and she let out a small, involuntary gasp. Her hands trembled as she stared at it. Where did you get this? She whispered. My mother kept everything, even the things she couldn't say out loud. That's not what it looks like. Really? I tilted my head. Because it looks a lot like theft. She stood up suddenly, clutching the photo to her chest. I didn't steal anything, she said. Your mother gave it to me. She wanted me to have it. I folded my arms. Funny how she never mentioned that. Diane's voice cracked. You don't understand what was happening back then. She wasn't thinking clearly. You mean because she was dying? Diane's mouth opened, then shut. For once, she had no words. I took the photo back from her and slid it into the envelope. I don't need you to admit it, I said. I already know. And now Jake will too. Her eyes widened. Please, don't tell him. Why not? I asked. Because he'll finally see you for who you are? She looked like she might cry or scream, but she did neither. She just sat back down and stared at the floor. She wasn't glittering anymore. She was shaking. Jake sat on the edge of the bed, holding the photograph in his hands like it was burning through his skin. He didn't say anything for a long time, just stared. I stood quietly across from him, watching the disbelief fade from his face and something else take its place. Realization. The kind that changes how you see someone forever. When was this taken? He finally asked, his voice low. 2 weeks before she passed, I said. Diane said she was visiting her to give me a break, but that ring Mom wore every day went missing the next morning. Jake closed his eyes. I could see the weight of it sinking in. He had always defended her, always given her the benefit of the doubt. She's just misunderstood, he used to say. She doesn't mean any harm. But this? This wasn't harmless. Why didn't you show me this sooner? He asked softly. I wasn't sure if I wanted to destroy your image of her, I replied. But then she tried to steal from me again. I couldn't stay silent. He nodded slowly. She crossed the line. It wasn't anger in his voice. It was something sadder. Betrayal. He stood up, the photo still in his hand, and walked to the living room. Diane looked up from the couch, hopeful for a second, until she saw the envelope. Jake, she started, standing quickly. I can explain. No, he said, voice firm. Don't. She froze. His tone was calm, but absolute. I saw the picture. I know what you did. Diane's face tightened, but she kept her composure. It's not what you think. That photo doesn't prove anything. You were going through her purse, Jake said, in a hospital room 2 weeks before she died. Diane took a step forward, lowering her voice like she was bargaining. She gave me the ring, Jake. She wanted me to have it. We had an understanding. She told me things she didn't tell Anna. Jake shook his head slowly. No, Mom. This isn't just about a ring. You came into our home. You went through Anna's drawer in the middle of the night. You tried to open a safe that wasn't yours. I made a mistake, she said quickly. I was desperate. For what? I asked, stepping in. The jewelry? The cash? Or just control? Diane's eyes narrowed. The polite mask slipped, if only for a second. You think you're so clever, she snapped. You think you've won? This isn't a game, I replied coldly. This is our life, one you're no longer welcome in. Jake didn't say anything. He didn't have to. He walked to the front door, opened it wide, and looked at his mother. You need to go, he said. Diane stood there, stunned. Jake, I'm your mother. I know, he said, but I'm also Anna's husband, and I won't let you keep disrespecting her, or what her mother left behind. Her mouth quivered like she wanted to say something more, but nothing came out. She turned slowly, grabbed her purse, and walked to the door. As she passed me, she paused. You'll regret this, she muttered. I met her eyes, calm and steady. No, I won't. And with that, she stepped outside. Jake closed the door behind her. Silence filled the house. He turned to me, his face pale but resolute. I'm sorry, he whispered. I know, I said, and it's not your fault. He walked over and pulled me into a long, tight hug. No words, just the warmth of finally being on the same side. Later that night, I opened the safe again. The journal was still there. So were the heirlooms, untouched, safe. I ran my fingers across the pages, and for the first time since my mother passed, I felt peace. She had trusted me to protect her legacy. And I had. Diane might never forget what she saw in that drawer, not because of the glitter, but because it marked the end of her power over us, and the beginning of my voice.